It's dark, and we're wearing sunglasses. Hit it.
To infinity and beyond!
Get off, Napoleon. Make yourself a dang quesadilla.
I know Kung Fu.
This is one doodle that can't be undid, Holmes Gillett.
And my axe.
This should be open because it's civil rights. This is the 90s.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
1.21 gigawatts! I'm gonna make this pencil disappear.
Gucci.
Hello and welcome to the KendallCast Movie Roundtable. I'm your host Kendall. With me as always is Nick.
Hello.
Ian.
Hey everyone.
And Jeff.
Here we go.
We didn't do any sound checks, but I think everybody's wobbling on the wave file, so we're all good.
All about the professionalism here.
Oh, let me actually.
Everyone needed to know that we messed that up.
Yeah, whatever. It's fine.
It'll explain why this sounds so awkward later.
I think we're good. Yeah, I'll run it through the level later. It'll be fine. So we are talking about the 2010 film Inception. I had the idea for the film. It came to me in a forgotten dream or something.
Yeah, it's because I wanted to talk about it, but I needed Kendall to get the idea, so I did some shenanigans.
Nice.
Okay, so I picked this film. I'd really been wanting to revisit it, just because it's important. It's one of these things that's important to have an opinion about Christopher Nolan if you're going to exist on the internet.
True.
And I feel strongly that, like, if there are things that it's like, if I'm going to have an opinion about, like, a ranking or, like, is this the best or is whatever, then I need to revisit the media so that I'm, like, if I'm going to rank all the Star Wars movies, I have to occasionally watch them. Like, if I'm going to say Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom is terrible, I need to revisit it at least like once a decade to make sure that it still doesn't do it for me,
Yeah.
Or vice versa. If I'm going to say, Raiders is great, then I got to,
Incidentally, do you think Temple of Doom is terrible?
I mean, well, we talked about Raiders, right? Yeah. That I'm not a huge fan of it. I think that and Last Crusade, I have never stayed awake the whole time.
Why?
Not as a criticism to the movie.
Is that Temple of Doom is the best, right? Indiana Jones?
No. We'll get there. Last Crusade, not as a criticism of the movie. It's just that, like, basically any time that I've watched Last Crusade, it was after watching Raiders and Temple of Doom. And so then it's like 2:00 in the morning by the time I'm watching Last Crusade, and I fall asleep in the middle of it. Or I always fall asleep in the middle of it and then wake up for the ending. Temple of Doom is, so I'm not that high on Indiana Jones or on Raiders of the Lost Ark. Temple of Doom is a significant downgrade from that.
Okay.
Is what I would say. Now whether it's also like sexist and racist and stuff, which like doesn't help.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, Ian, yes, he thinks it's bad.
Okay.
It's definitely. I agree with what most people say that it is the worst of the trilogy.
All right.
And where that bar lands for me is probably lower. Like I would say it's like worse than, I don't know, like Attack of the Clones. Like I would say it is worse than Attack of the Clones.
Worse than Attack of the Clones.
But
is
Inception.
it worse than Crystal Skull?
Ooh.
It is not. No, I think Crystal Skull is worse, but
Yeah, the movie's terrible.
But it's because the reason Crystal Skull is bad is actually it's one of these movies that the good parts are the parts that people say are bad. Like people talk about the fridge scene where he goes in the fridge of the nuclear bomb. That's the best part of the movie.
Okay. I don't know if I'd go that far.
Like the rest of the movie is
a bold statement.
The rest of the movie is just boring.
I mean, I think the hate for the fridge scene is for sure kind of over exaggerated.
I think the fridge scene lets you know exactly what kind of movie it's going to be, and I think it's fine.
I think the fridge scene tells you that it's going to be a fun, exciting, silly movie,
And then it's not.
and then it's boring.
Yeah.
Yo,
That's why. But we're not talking about. We're not talking about. But also, I haven't seen Crystal Skull in
true. I
the
watched
better
it one
part of the
time.
decade.
Since it came out.
And
Yeah.
never again.
So at some point I will have to rewatch it and reevaluate. But that's my
Ian,
my current
I
take.
know what your movie should be.
But
so for those
I know
of
it's
you
my
who,
pick, but I'm not spending it on that.
for those of you who are excited to listen to an episode about Inception,
But
you're like, why are they
Inception-
talking about Indiana Jones right now?
But-
What is going
Because
on?
I put it in his brain. That's
We're
why.
Inception is not hard on
We're
Kendall,
coming
man.
to a point, though.
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
so you've come back to Inception.
But
just
so
like
Inception, I saw it in theaters, and I liked it, like solidly liked it. Like it was a good, like an 8 out of 10, a 3.5 out of 5. Like this is well above average. I thought it was like there was when it came out. If you guys remember, people were like, "Oh my gosh, it's a movie that's not a superhero movie. Oh, it's the most amazing thing in the world that we've got a summer blockbuster that's not a superhero movie." And that was in 2010. I mean, that would actually be a big deal now, probably bigger deal now than it was then. But like, it was a big, like some people really, really went crazy for it, and it was right after, it was after Dark Knight, but before Dark Knight Rises, right? So
yeah, came out between them.
So like Christopher Nolan is God right now, and he puts out this really, really solid movie that some people really, really loved. I also, when I watched it originally, at least some criticism was that it's a confusing premise that kind of leans into the confusing exposition, which some of Christopher Nolan's other movies have done since then as well. And when I saw it initially, I was like paying attention the whole time and felt like, no, it totally makes sense the whole time.
Yeah.
On this viewing, I did get distracted a few times, and I was like, and there were a few moments, I don't remember what they were, but there were a few moments where I was like, that seems a little unnecessarily confusing, or I don't really understand. It's like, I remember that I understood the last time I saw this, how this worked. But
It's funny, ironically, that my experience is the opposite. I remember like when I first saw Inception, I loved it. I was one of the people you're talking about who thought it was like the greatest thing since sliced bread. Still kind of do. But like, I remember being kind of confused at times and thinking like, what's happening here? I don't care. It's awesome. I enjoyed it. Right.
Right. And you just go with it, even so.
But on my most recent rewatch last week, I realized like, actually, I followed this. I recently, like Tenet was probably the most recent Christopher Nolan movie that I watched before this.
which is super confusing.
Yeah, like Tenet is like a mess of exposition and confusion and strange premise, right? And so compared to that, like this movie just flowed like silk to me, right? I just followed it. It made sense. I knew what was going on at every moment, and it felt like it was just a symphony or a cacophony of excitement by the end. So
Nick looks like he had something he wanted to add.
So we brought up Tenet, and I think that's a really important comparison to make because when this movie came out, everyone was like, I don't get it, and then people were like, I get it, you're dumb, and then there was it was
Being the internet, yes.
You couldn't talk about this movie without saying whether you got it or not and whether the other person was dumb, basically. But I think one thing that really comes through is I think it actually isn't that hard to follow. So everyone who didn't get it is dumb? No, that's my hot take.
you're all dumb, everyone.
No, yeah, everyone is dumb. That's end of story. No, I think it's easy to get confused if you either can't hear due to Christopher Nolan's sound mix, because although this is one of the movies that I feel is least egregious that he does.
Yeah. Compared to Tenet especially. Tenet you cannot hear.
I'll come back to Tenet because I think there's a lot of important
One of the myriad
Tenet.
of problems with that movie.
But is that they explain the plot every 30 seconds, basically, and they tell you exactly where they are in the plan. So there's not besides a couple cool action scenes, there's not a lot of movie that isn't telling you what's happening. Yeah. So if you're even remotely paying attention and have been the whole time, it's relatively easy to figure out where you are in the story. If you don't understand that there's the different tiers of dimension, I could see how it's hard to follow. Maybe you weren't paying attention the first time they went to a place and they flash back to it and you have no idea where that is.
Yeah, you do have to like catch that, right?
Right.
You have to catch it in order for the knowledge to build on itself.
Yeah.
Just
so
like
that
the
you can
dreams.
follow everything
If
along.
you
yes.
and then you're like, why aren't these characters here anymore? Yeah,
It's like when I first watched Inception, I remember being super confused by the beginning, right? Because they introduced the concept of multi-layer dreaming immediately, right? Because you have the sequence in the original dream, right, where they're walking through the facility and it's like a party and it's really nice. And then slowly they start showing scenes in the apartment building, right? And then there's the rioters coming toward them, and you're like, what? And then they again start showing,
what's going on with the riot?
right? And
yeah,
they're
what's it all
trickling in
about?
scenes from on the train, you know, and at first I'm like, this is what is happening right now, and there's transitioning between them. But now that I've seen it before, I've probably seen this movie 3 or 4 times by this point. Like, it makes perfect sense to me, and I love that they do it that way, right? Because he's slowly putting on another layer as he's fleshing out the previous layer. He's introducing a new one, and if you have that background knowledge, it starts to make sense, and it feels like it fits.
And I think that's an important comes to my second part comparison to Tenet, where when you look at this movie, it all layers nicely together, especially the ending where you're not sure what's going on, which I'm sure we'll come back to in a little bit.
Yeah.
But when you compare it to some of the other movies like Tenet specifically, because Tenet tries to basically do a very similar story and a very similar structure, Tenet does not hold up, because the more you look at that movie, I think the more it just doesn't make sense and things don't cross. And you look at like the timeline and how the physics of the world is supposed to work, and it just collapses. Where I think this movie, he does a much better job of making sure that every single aspect and detail kind of flow back into things.
Yeah, sometimes I think about the editing process, and like he spent a lot of time putting together this movie, right? And by the time you've spent that much time working on it, of course everything makes sense to you, and you have to go through screen tests and everything
Focus
to try to
groups
get like how easy is it actually to follow, like you have to separate yourself from your work enough to know how to turn it into something that can be followed.
And you have to have that all together beforehand, or else you're going to be in reshoots forever.
Right. So for a movie like this, I find that now I've seen this movie probably too many times. Like the last time I watched it, I'm like, this is too familiar at this point. I've probably seen it 6 or 7 times, and now it seems so easy to follow, just like it might have for a director who put it together over a year.
Yeah, so a couple things. First of all, with the confusingness, because apparently that's all this movie is whether or not it's confusing. Nick's fault.
Everyone is dumb except me. No.
But speaking to that, first of all, I think with and I did like Tenet, but I don't feel like talking about it. Also, I saw Tenet once a year and a half ago, and it was a late at night, so I don't remember most of it, and I don't think you remember most of it either. Because you probably only saw it once also.
I've seen it twice, thank you.
Oh, okay.
Twice.
Interesting.
I hated it both times.
Because I do remember that Jeff asked me a question about it, about the explaining Tenet, when I had just seen it, and I was able to answer it, and I could not answer it now. so I definitely don't. I don't know why you saw it twice when you hated it so much, but that's okay. But regardless of, but when you talk about these Christopher Nolan movies that have like a complicated plot, and somebody's like, "Well, can you explain it to me? It's too confusing." It's like that's the point of the movie. They spend 2 hours explaining it to you. And they keep you compelling. They keep it compelling, but it is a lot of exposition, slowly explaining how this universe works. It's like it's a sandbox that he's created.
Yeah.
Right. When Jeff and I talk about world building, this is exactly what we want.
Yeah.
I think what makes this movie, I would almost argue that Inception in some ways can be like recharacterized as the tragedy of Christopher Nolan movies. And the reason why I phrase it that way is because Inception is kind of the exception, no pun intended, right? That proves the rule, where you typically say you don't want exposition in your movies, right? You want as infrequently exposition as possible. It's boring. Nobody wants to hear voiceovers explain things, right? But and Inception is full of it, right? Exposition all the time, constant. But for whatever reason, like, it works. Like Kendall said, they managed to keep it compelling. It's interesting, even though they explain some of the same things over and over again. But I call it a tragedy because when you look at a lot of movies that Nolan has tried to make sense.
So can you give me an example other than Tenet?
Okay, Tenet, I think Dunkirk is another good example, right? Where you have the 3 different time frames, whether it's at sea, on land, or in the air, and the time frames work differently, but he's trying to layer them on top of each other. I think Dunkirk still works overall, but I still think that sequence is clunky and it's hard to follow, and he doesn't pull it off as well as he does in Inception. So I think he's tried to repeat that afterward, but he nailed it with Inception, and it's been kind of inferior since.
I need to revisit Dunkirk, too, because Dunkirk is a movie that when I saw it, I didn't like it. But in years since, I decided I changed my mind and I like it now.
I don't hate Dunkirk. I really don't. I think it's a solid movie. And
actually, that's really funny that you say that. I don't think you're supposed to know what's going on in Dunkirk.
Yeah,
I think you're supposed to just be kind of along for the ride.
I remember my problem with Dunkirk boiled down to one thing. I mean, the time skipping was evident. My problem was 2 of the main characters were too similar and one was wet all the time, and I couldn't tell they weren't the same person, and I was very confused.
Yeah.
I mean, fair. One year at Nick's Oscars party, I was in a bad mood and just walking around saying all these white people look the same. because that was one of those years, one of many years that was full where the Oscar nominees were full of a bunch of the same gender, the same race, the same age, wearing all the same clothes.
Demographically homogenous.
Yeah, like yes. You know, a lot of because a lot of times they are period dramas. I did a spreadsheet of all the Oscar nominees that I've seen in the last 13 years since we've been paying attention to the Oscars with our group here. Or here, Nick and me.
Look, I would like to point out that this Inception has a very special place in my heart because it's really like the first year that we did the Oscars when I had, what was it, Inception and Lincoln and something else. And a King's Speech all on the same slip, and I had to take a shot every time one of them won.
For some
I was destroyed.
For some reason, I still don't know what Tom Hardy looks like.
That's fair.
Well, because he always like really like changes his look for his roles.
Right.
Yeah.
A method actor.
But anyway, but what was my point? But yeah. Well, what I was saying is I did a spreadsheet and I was like, what are the best picture nominee like templates? Like what's there's like 5 explanations. Like they're either it's an auteur director, it's a period drama, it's a stuffy British period drama, or it's hard to watch. Or like you have your token quirky comedies, and then the other one that I discovered is, and Inception falls into this, non-franchise sci-fi in the last 10 years. So, but I would say 90% of the Best Picture nominees that when I went through on the spreadsheet were period dramas. So, So yeah, Dunkirk. A lot of the characters look similar. The time stuff is a little weird, but I don't think you're supposed to. I think Dunkirk is about feel. Yeah. Now, this movie is also about feel, I think.
But in a different way. Yeah.
It's You are just kind of along for the ride, and it is it is visually stunning, and it's got this and like the soundtrack has this.
Oh, don't even start on the soundtrack.
It's like what this is it occurred to me. Because ever since then, like a lot of movies have been trying to imitate this style. Yeah. This is the Matrix 10 years later.
Yes, thank you. That's always my take with this movie. I think this movie is the Matrix but better.
I gotta say, the physical effects that they put into this movie are crazy impressive because they built the entire hotel set that rotates on a gimbal.
That is a truly great fight scene.
I even remember the first time I saw it in theater, I was with a group of friends, and we're watching the sequence, and we both just look at each other, and our mouths are like agape, and we're like, what the heck are we watching right now? I've never seen anything like this, and I still remember that moment.
I had another point, too.
The things that the insurance will not let anyone that isn't Christopher Nolan do to really famous actors.
Anime. Okay. So one of my favorite ways to watch anime is for it to be 2007, and
step 1
for me to wake up at 3:00 in the morning because I left the TV on, and it's like Ghost in the Shell or something completely out of context. I'm half asleep and I have no idea what's going on, but like there's just this look and feel to it, and what I did learn, like, when I went back and watched, like, some of these, you know, Ghost in the Shell, Darker Than Black, other random things, like, there actually is a plot that does make sense if you watch it all the way through. But, and Inception is like this too. Sometimes you can just kind of go with it, and it works, even if you don't totally understand, like, even if you did miss a scene where they explain the timeline, or you don't totally understand Maul's accent, why she has no accent at the beginning and it gets thicker over the course of the movie.
No.
I don't know if you guys noticed that, but she has like an American accent in the first scene, and then her accent gets thicker like over the course of the movie, and I don't know what country she's from. Is she like Welsh or something?
Right. A part of me always like let's talk about Maul for a little bit, because I think what makes
she's French,
that character, that makes sense.
That is not a French accent.
I mean the actress is French. I don't know about Maul.
Yeah. Okay. I think that what makes that character work so well is because Maul is ultimately a like personification of Leo. I'm gonna call him Leo because I forget his character's name. But Leonardo's like
Cobb.
Yeah, Cobb.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. So she's a personification of Cobb's subconscious perception of her. Right. And as the movie progresses, I would agree. Like, I'm not sure if I noticed quite the thickness of her accent like you did, Kendall. But I did notice that the more the movie went on, the more unsettling and creepy she became.
Well, I mean, that's it. The further down in his subconscious you go, the more exaggerated she gets. So the accent might be stronger intentionally.
Plus, it explores like her mental illness and her obsession.
But I think it's ultimately it gets creepier because the creepier Maul gets, the closer we get to the big plot twist of the movie, right? Which was that Cobb performed Inception on her,
right? Which
convinced her that she was still dreaming and led to her suicide, right? So that's also a reflection of Cobb's guilt and his self-loathing, right? Mm-hmm. So her creepiness and instability and like overall unsettling nature is ultimately a reflection of how Cobb views himself and views his own guilt, which I thought was a really good touch.
So I just thought of this tinfoil hat. So he incepts Maul. It leads to her suicide.
Yeah.
What do you think the ramifications of the inception that he does to the guy?
Well, I mean, the energy industry is destroyed, but it's probably good for
or the monopoly.
Oh my gosh!
Right? So that could be better.
Best line of the movie is when the guy. I don't know anybody's characters' names. Who's the old Asian guy?
Just call him the tourist.
Oh.
Saito.
Yeah. Speaking of
Ken Watanabe.
Yeah.
Saito. Yeah. Speaking of Ghost in the Shell, there's a character named Saito in Ghost in the Shell.
There is, isn't there? Yeah.
But he when they're like, oh, well, we'll need to make sure that we buy out the whole cabin and he's like, I bought the airline.
It seems similar.
Oh my gosh,
seems better.
Like,
yeah,
that's
the hardcore
level,
Bruce Wayne shit.
That is on the level of first rule of government spending: why buy one when you can buy two for twice the price?
Right.
Like, oh man.
It's so funny because he's like, we need to invade my competitor's dreams to break up his company so my company has a chance to thrive.
Yeah,
but I also have the
I'm
means to buy
probably
an
going to
airliner.
go out of business, but hey, let's spend all this money.
Right. Although, obviously, I think the most ridiculous scene with Saito is in the beginning, right, when Cobb is running from the agents of the company that he was working for in the very beginning. I forget what they're called, right, but they're chasing after him. And Saito just randomly shows up in his car and saves him, and he's like, I'm protecting my investment. But, like, why are you personally here? Like, send a guy for that. What are you doing? Right.
Well, because he doesn't want anyone except for him to... to know his connection.
Well, plus also, if it was anyone except for him, Cobb would just assume he was part of Kobe Engineering.
Maybe, but a wealthy, rich guy like that going into the middle of essentially a war zone.
I do want to finish.
It's just a country.
Well, yeah, but when there's a chase going on, people are shooting at him, right? It's a very dangerous, volatile situation.
I want to add one thing to your previous thought about the about Maul and the plot twist at the end. I appreciate that they foreshadow the plot twist right at the beginning of the movie. He says, "Yes, I've done it before. It's possible I've done it before."
Very cool.
It like propels the entire plot forward, and then turns out to be the big twist.
Right, because they even make that fit better, right? Because he's talking with Eames, who's like, we tried, and it didn't work, right? It didn't take. But then it's like, oh, so maybe it is impossible. But Cobb is always like, no, it's possible. I've done it before, right? And he has that confidence when it doesn't seem like he should.
And him having this kind of expert voice helps the exposition seem more interesting. Like he's always like withholding some information, but sharing what you need, both for the viewer and for the other characters.
Right, and like another thing I think this movie does such a good job of is like ratcheting up the stakes at the appropriate time, right? Because one of the dangers that you have in a film like this, right, is you're thinking, oh, well, all of the conflict, all of the tension is taking place in dreams, right? And when they die, they'll just wake up, right? So why should I care about any of this? No one's in any actual danger. But like right when I start thinking that, right, it's like, no, if we die now because we're so heavily sedated and we're gonna be multiple layers deep, we're gonna be stuck in limbo and we're gonna go insane, right?
Which
and
people are not happy about.
Yeah, right. And they do a good job of being like, what the heck are you doing right now?
So that to me is the most outlandish thing. Like this is like super planned out. Like they need every last little tiny detail, and then they just full on miss that this guy has like brain defense things.
Right, but that was supposed to be Arthur's job to catch, and he just like didn't catch it, and everyone yells at him for it, right? It's like, how can you make this mistake?
I know. Well, first of all, like it's pretty. It seems like that would be something they would expect, like because on the one hand, it doesn't like they didn't find it in the research, but on the other hand, obviously it's a thing that exists.
Right. They are not the only people doing this. Yeah. There's enough for a bunch of freelancers for other teams. Yeah.
He's practiced it enough with different people that he created a persona to convince them, right? I'm the leader of your brain defense. You need to trust me.
Yeah, and then the other thing is that I think that him not telling them that they will go into limbo because of how they're sedated, that bit, like that is information that he should have shared.
Right. Well, yeah, but the point is he was so desperate to get his kids back, he's willing to do anything, including lie to them, right? Which is essentially what he did, right?
It was a good movie. It wasn't a deal breaker for me, but I did think that felt that in and of itself felt like the kind of thing that you would have to bend over backwards to explain, as opposed to. It felt like we need to ratchet up the stakes here, so this is a plot need. So let's use a device.
Or in my case, lean slightly forward to explain. But
yeah.
I think the explanations are pretty there.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought compared with a lot of how solid the foundation was in the rest of the movie, and it kind of all happens at once too. Where it falls apart, and having Saito get shot, and actually you can't die here, and actually
dying here, you die in real life.
Yeah, like and we weren't prepared for the, and it's kind of like
too much goes wrong too quickly.
Yeah, it feels like we need to, we only have 7.5 hours for this movie. We need to make sure that we ratchet up the stakes.
It's actually the exact opposite structure though that like Ocean's 11 takes, right? Where everything goes exactly according to plan, but you just don't tell the viewer what the plan is. So that way they're still surprised and there's tension. This is the opposite, right? Where the viewer gets told the plan very, very thoroughly, but then everything goes wrong immediately, right? And they have to start like improvising, right?
Yeah, although I don't know, the ending still is weird. I mean,
we can talk about
not like the ending, but like even just the like getting him into the room with his father thing at the kind of the end game of the plan still feels weird to me. Like it I don't know, but
I mean, they kind of put it in his head, and then he just filled in the rest around it. I mean, he got what he wanted.
Right. I mean, I think that's covered in the exposition when they're in like the cafe, right? And Cobb is like, the dreamer just naturally fills in all the details, and the NPCs, for lack of a better phrase, they do it.
Yeah,
I did like that. He should be paying us for this because we're giving him therapy.
I know,
right? From was it Eames?
Yeah, the actor guy. Yeah. All right, so another thing that we can talk about, I think we should probably talk about the end now, because for me, story-wise, probably the clunkiest thing is like how limbo works and the rules of it, right? Because based on what I know and what I figured out, right, there are ultimately 4 layers that we have in Dreaming, right? Like you have the first 3, And then there's limbo, right, which is like where Cobb and Maud spent like 50 years of their life, right, and they have the potential to basically create and become gods, and that exists, and then people who are sharing dreams will both kind of subconsciously fill it with things, right? But like
technically they went 4 because they did the last one when he was dying and being shot before Limbo.
You mean like the snow one?
Below that, when they were talking to Maul and then he kicked her out the window.
That was still in Limbo though, right? Because
that wasn't quite in Limbo.
They
yet.
woke up on the shore and the buildings are crumbling and they're kind of walking in.
Yeah,
as
I
they
think
get
that
to
was
that
Limbo.
building.
Yeah, that is Limbo.
Oh, that is Limbo. Okay,
Yeah.
then that definitely breaks down because that if you just have to die to
Right.
get out of Limbo, that's
So, like-
exactly what he said you couldn't do.
Right, which kind of breaks the tension, right? Because it's like, oh, if I get sent to limbo forever, but if I just have to like get my head run over by a train or whatever, and I can wake up, then what's the big deal?
Right.
Just kill
Yes.
yourself in limbo and you're fine.
Yeah, but maybe like, because they went there intentionally, it changed the rules. I'm not entirely sure. It is kind of weird.
But there's also the problem of, given everything we know about limbo and sort of like the weird stagnant nature of it, but also it's basically like a children's city with blocks, but with like better graphics, kind of, right? Like there's not a lot of people there. I feel like it's a very distinct place, right? Even though they can build whatever they want. But then the whole tension at the end of the movie is like, you don't really know if Cobb is still dreaming or not, because he could still be in limbo. But it's like, he's in the airport now and he's still waking up from the train or from the on the airplane, right? And he's entering into, I'm like, is that part of limbo? Is that part of like the creative? It's unclear to me. Or has he just gone up another layer?
Well, like, or was Maul right all along?
Right.
You know,
but if she was, that means they're still in limbo somehow.
Yeah, I think I think that the point is that limbo makes you crazy.
Yeah.
Like and not just specifically limbo, but going into the whole thing is that going into dreams and going deeper and deeper makes you crazy. That's why there's people that come and wire themselves into the thing so they can dream for 40 hours, and that's the only way they can dream anymore, and all that stuff.
Right.
And also the other reason that they're able to do it and get out, I think, is that you got to be really good at it. Is that Adriana, is that her name? She's got a weird
Ariadne.
Ariadne. Ariadne is good at it. Is good at the dream stuff, and Cobb is good at the dream stuff.
Yeah.
So, like, and they're the best. Like that's why they don't go crazy when they're in there. Because they're the best at it. Cobb because he's been doing it forever, and Ariadne because
she's just like an intuitive.
She could make the maze in 2 minutes.
She was and she was able to, do the like mess with the dream, like when he's like, you're still on the tutorial level here,
right.
like,
and she's like, nah, I'm on the level maker now, man, I got this.
And also I also wonder like, his Cobb's father-in-law picks Ariadne as like the person, like, even though he knows that this is like criminal stuff and this is like, it's like what did she have, what did she get out of it,
Well, I think that's covered pretty well though, because when she discovers,
I mean, they all get paid, right?
Well, but like she discovered, like, when she's building the stuff and then she gets attacked by Cobb's subconscious, she freaks out and she's like, I'm not doing this is insane. But then, like, Arthur's like, she'll be back, right? Because she's discovered the potential of creation.
Well, that's what I mean is, if this is clear, it's a drug.
Yeah.
Going into dreams is a drug.
Kind of, yeah.
So, the professor, the architecture professor, his criminal on the run son-in-law comes to him and says, "Can you give me one of your students to be a criminal?" Like, what made him choose?
Does he tell Michael Caine that he can get cleared by doing this?
Yeah, he's like, this is my only chance.
Okay. So I guess that just the fact that he wants his grandkids to have a father.
He obviously doesn't believe that Cobb killed him.
But yeah, he totally sells out.
I understand. I understand that he would choose somebody.
Yeah.
And he also he's done this before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He taught Cobb, so.
Yeah, and I feel like there's an implication that, like,
I kind of thought that he invented it, and then maybe Maul and Cobb kind of took it further than anyone else while it spread, and they were kind of the pioneers.
It was invented by the military, right? They talk about that so that they could simulate combat.
It kind of felt like Kane somehow was involved with it. I mean, I don't know.
It was probably Wayne Tech invented it, and then he got it. He got it from his brother.
Naturally,
his brother. His name is Michael Pennyworth. Yeah, but like I just wonder what it was. What was it about Ariadne? I mean, is it his best student? Because probably wouldn't be. You probably wouldn't send your best student to go live a life of crime. If you were, it was. Does she have gambling debts?
I mean, I assume it would have to be like his most inventive student or something like that. Someone. I mean, I assume.
So you think he's 100% selling out? He's just looking for the one that's the most likely to succeed. You don't think there's something else?
I mean, yeah, maybe there was like some other criteria, but I think it was more like he was looking for someone that could do the sorts of things that Cobb needed, not necessarily his best student who might have focused on something that unrelated, like best at making video games or something like that.
Right, and like keep in mind that Michael Caine's character isn't really that important in the story, right? And they don't spend a lot of time on this, right?
The backstories of anybody isn't, but there's obviously is a backstory.
Right.
I think that kind of comes to what I was saying about the anime stuff. Like, you can tell that there is, that there is just like volumes and volumes of backstory for all of these characters, even if we don't share, even if they don't share with us. But Elliot Page knows.
I mean, that's the essence of good world and character building.
Right, and maybe some way, but maybe,
it's just like you can just tell there's like it's like more in this than some other stuff.
I mean, I think you just have to. I think the best way to do it is to work backwards from the text, right? So we know Ariadne is mostly motivated by she's just in all of the technologies and she's in all of what she's capable of doing, right? And so I think Michael Caine knows that about her, and that's why he chooses her, right? Because even though he knows this is criminal and Cobb's probably going down a bad path, he still knows this is freaking cool and I respect it, right? So I'm going to pick a student that also has that sense of curiosity and wonderment and capability that will, in some ways, maybe treat it with the same level of all that I do.
Right.
Yeah.
He still clearly respects Cobb.
Yeah.
Even
so you guys don't think Ariadne has like no family, or like gambling debts or like drug addiction.
I mean, who needs gambling debts when you got student loans?
She seems too level-headed for that.
Student loans.
You gotta pay off those student loans.
It's in Europe, bro. They don't have student loans like we do. This is France.
This is the future, baby. Everyone's got it.
It's dystopian AF.
Is Inception in the future?
It's in a future.
Yeah, I think it's maybe like her. It's supposed to be like a near future.
A different modern era. Yeah.
Because I don't feel like there was anything.
It could be like 10 years from now. Is the whole point? Like,
I don't feel like there was anything outside of the. Well, I mean, I don't think there was any technology we saw outside of the dream technology itself.
Dreaming,
No, they didn't even really use the internet.
Yeah, they didn't even have smartphones. Yeah. Did they have smartphones? I don't know.
I don't think they used it.
Okay, so let's talk about
the end. Let's talk about the end.
Right. So I think you have the incredibly tight storytelling, you have the exciting tension and like just the way the movie unfolds and how fun it is to follow and all that stuff. But obviously the central question this movie is asking, and you see it hinted earlier in the scene that Kendall mentioned, when you have all these people coming in just to sleep there for 2 hours to dream forever. It's the central question the movie is asking is very similar to the one that The Matrix does, right? Which is, what is the nature of reality? And how do you know? But Inception takes it a little bit further than The Matrix does, where The Matrix has like a clear answer to that question. At least the first movie does. We didn't want to talk about that. Yeah, that's the whole other thing. But I feel like the first movie answers that question very clearly. But Inception kind of takes more of a postmodern approach, right? Where it's like, we probably know what reality is, but maybe we don't. But in the end, it doesn't matter, right? Because I know when I'll go back to my very first viewing in the theater when we watched it, when the film cuts away from the top before you see whether it topples or not, right? As soon as that happened, someone in the audience literally yelled, "Oh, come on!" Right? It was hilarious. We all laughed. You can hear an audible laugh. And for a long time, I was like, "Oh my gosh, I hate this!" Right? I wish he would have went in one way or the other, and it bothered me. But then eventually, as I kind of grew up and studied more about how postmodernism works, the point is it doesn't matter, right? Like you don't need to know.
Yeah, so there's layers to it, right? There's the people that think, oh, he's definitely still in a dream, or this is definitely reality. And then there's the people who say, no, the point is that it doesn't matter whether he's in a dream or not. But I think the real point is to make you ask the question of whether it matters or not.
Okay. So what's the difference between those two, the second and the third one?
It doesn't matter.
Because you look at Cobb, right? Because the point is he doesn't care, right? Because he's been obsessing over that top the entire movie. He spins it all the time. He has a gun to his head. You know, he's constantly watching. But then when he gets home,
like Hook.
Yeah, right. Then
that's what Hook was in a dream.
Hook was trying to figure out if Smeed would stop him.
The layers just keep on coming, everyone.
Because he knows that only the real Shmee would stop him.
Shmee is Hook's totem.
Yeah.
Anyway, but like Cobb was obsessed with the totem, right? Like that's all he thinks about at every point in this movie. But then when he gets home and he sees his kids, he spins the totem and then he sees his kids and forgets about it, right? And he's like, I care about the kids. That's what matters to me. He doesn't even look at it, right? So that clearly communicates that Cobb does not care whether or not he's in reality, right?
Guys,
he has what he wants.
We recording? I better stop the recording. Jeff's right.
I'm gonna need that in writing, Kendall.
You know what? So you know what? I'm gonna say Jeff. Actually, Jeff changed my mind because my take on it is a much more cynical take that I don't actually agree with. Now I agree with Jeff, but I'm gonna say my take anyway, just so that people in the audience who still think the way that I did 5 minutes ago
and definitely exist
will feel heard. I think it's one of those. I think it's one of these Twilight Zone endings that it's like. I mean, it is what you said. It doesn't matter, but like in a dumb way. like they intentionally, they intentionally end it. I feel like because I didn't think about the kids thing. This is the one time in history that Jeff is smarter than me because he has kids.
I would do the same thing, man.
No, you're totally right. You're totally right. I didn't think about the kids thing. About him not caring anymore,
and they reveal, and the movie reveals their face for the first time.
And he knows that, that they're real because he's a father, and blah blah blah. That's the correct take. I am wrong, but my thought was especially when I watched it this time, and I was in a little bit of a bad mood at the end. I mean, I still enjoyed it, but I was still just like in a little bit of a bad mood. There's no clues. Like it's not like there's something you could see earlier, like in I don't know all of fan theories that exist in the world, but like Minority Report, the idea that the last 30 minutes is all in his prison cell, that fan theory, like there's reasons to support that, right? And or like the Decker is a replicant theory. Like there's reasons to support that within the text. This literally just he spins the top and then it pans away. Yeah. Like you cannot know unless what Jeff said is true. You cannot know. Like there's no way to know. So there's no point, and then it completely destroys the entire premise of the movie, and that's why the movie's horrible. 1 star.
Now there was a fan theory that I read that I thought was kind of interesting. I haven't had a chance to go back and verify it because I read about it this afternoon. But there was someone that noticed, I guess, he's wearing a ring in all of the subconscious scenes, and in the reality one, or at least where he thinks reality is, which doesn't necessarily mean that it's reality. It just means that's what he currently thinks is reality. Yeah. He's not wearing a ring.
Interesting.
So... And they point out that the ring may have been his totem before he adopted Mal's totem.
Yeah, because they even implied that the top was Mal's at first.
It was not his original totem. It has become his totem out of shame, if nothing else. So just kind of an interesting thing. I will probably go back later tonight and check. But just so yeah, you don't see it in the reality scenes. You don't see it in the passport scene where he's going through that. He even hands it to him with the left hand.
Yeah.
And he's not wearing the ring. But in all the scenes where Mal still exists, he is wearing the ring.
Interesting.
That said, I fully subscribe to Jeff's thing where, yeah, they absolutely want you to ask the question. I think Ian's right. Asking the question is the point. It doesn't really matter what the true answer is, but I think just the fact that getting people to even consider that current reality might be a dream or something like that is...
Right. And like if you look at like the philosophy of, you know, modernity versus postmodernism, and we want to get nerdy about it, right? If anybody ever asked me like, Jeff, what is postmodernism, and explain it to me, I'd just like watch Inception, because this movie I think does better job than any other movie I've ever seen of explaining how postmodernism works and why, right? Because postmodernism takes all of the assumptions about modernity that we can know truth and we can know it really easily and we can know it really well, and we just have to be super logical and we got it all figured out, right? And postmodernism is like, no, we're not as logical as we think we are. Our ability to reason is informed by our biases, our culture, our assumptions, right? And our ability to perceive truth is minimized. We can't do it as well as we think. In some ways we can't know, and it's impossible to know. So instead we need to like find things in our lives that give us meaning, right? And that's exactly what Cop does, right? He can't perceive reality. He spends the entire movie desperately trying to do so, but then he realizes what gives him meaning is not the knowledge of reality or whatever, whether it's true or not. It's his kids, and it's what he wants.
Of course, at some point, the character must go back to the table and see if it's still spinning or not.
Don't ruin everything, Ian.
He just comes back 2 days later. He's like, oh no,
it's still going.
I think my implication or my assumption was that Michael Caine picked up,
grabbed it. Okay.
Oh, maybe.
But also he could just spin it again.
And once it's out of his control,
and it also doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if he.
Yeah. You can even make an argument.
He's not wearing the ring at the end, by the way.
Okay.
Friggin' stupid screen rant. I googled it. Apparently, Nick didn't read the end of the article.
But Ian, I would make the argument that Cobb wouldn't go back and check the totem. Right. He would be like, you know what? I'm here with my kids. I got it. I got what I want. I don't want to know.
But surely
I was reading on my phone, and there's some
he's gonna go back to that table at some point.
But let's assume maybe it was knocked over, or Michael Caine grabbed it, and he's like, oh, I could spin it and find out, but I don't think
he might not spin again.
I don't think he would.
Yeah.
Right. He's where he wants to be.
Even if it is a dream, I mean, at some point he wakes up again, and so like eventually he will know. Like, even if it is a dream, eventually he'll know. But for now, it doesn't matter.
Right. And it's interesting because Nolan sneaks in the entire purpose of the movie earlier, right, in the scene when they're meeting with the sedative guy, and all the people are sleeping, and the random guy who's supervising it's like, you judge them for coming in here and dreaming, but who are you to say whether or not what they're experiencing is real, right? That's the entire point of the movie, right? And so Nolan says it there, and at the time you're like, oh, that's cool. But then by the end of the movie, when you see everything Cobb has been through, his desperation, his desire to see his kids, you're not just told that message, you feel it.
See,
right?
I think you're supposed to sort of be dismissive of it when it's thrown out there the first time. I think you're supposed to kind of reject it inherently.
Right, yeah, that's fair. But then by the end, you're almost kind of convinced of it. Yeah.
See, the problem,
which is why the movie works so well.
So the problem with that, Jeff, is that you're the only person in the entire world that figured it out.
I am not. My take is not that.
I've actively tried to avoid Inception fan theories because that seems like the worst possible part of the internet. But
10 years later.
But yeah, in the past 10 years, I have never heard anyone suggest that it had to do with his his kids granted him the reality stuff.
Oh.
And I think that's correct. But obviously Christopher Nolan failed because everybody else in the world thinks what cynical Kendall said was right.
Okay.
The article said there's clues throughout the movie, but I mean, aside from the ring thing, like which actually I hate when I do this, but I think that I noticed that. When I watched the movie the first time, 10 years ago, I think I did notice the ring thing, but also like that doesn't. You're right. That doesn't matter because it's just what he thinks.
Right.
Is reality.
Right. Yeah, it's an incredible movie. Like I I feel like it works on so many, like, usually I feel like movies are successful in a very focused way. It's really funny, it's really exciting, it tells a really engaging story, but you know, it's not that funny. Like, but this movie I think succeeds in that, like, it's really exciting. It's emotionally, like, it's an emotional gut punch, right? When you find out the plot twist of what Cobb really did, and then him finally meet, like, the score at the very end, right? When he's seeing his kids, I just brings me to tears every time.
I'm calling it now in January. This is going on our list.
Right? Like, this movie, it's technically brilliant. It's a masterpiece to watch. The soundtrack is incredible. It's emotionally resonant. Like, I feel like it just hits on so many different levels that few movies can achieve that kind of broad success.
Yeah, I feel like this is it's one of, especially the way that culture has fractured. You know, we don't have the monoculture anymore.
Yeah.
Christopher Nolan is one of the few auteur directors who can just eat anything he wants to make. It seems like he has a blank check for.
Yeah.
He can make stuff risky. He can make it. He's usually pretty successful. Like, he's commercially successful enough that he can make the next thing.
Yeah.
Even if sometimes people don't.
Even
like
after
some of
Tenet,
his stuff.
people keep giving him money.
Right. What's he making now?
Oppenheimer is coming out soon.
Oh,
I think
yeah,
that's his next one,
Oppenheimer.
which
That's
I'm
right.
really stoked about.
That's
right?
probably gonna be good.
I think I'm really excited. I feel like it's been like I feel like it's been a while since he's made a great movie. I thought like Interstellar was probably his best
Has he done a biopic
movie.
before?
I'm not sure. I don't think so.
Other than Dunkirk, I guess.
Yeah, that's not.
Dunkirk's not a biopic.
Right, but it's yeah. But it does follow like
What, Dark Knight Rises isn't a biopic?
Right. But yeah, like I feel like he obviously like for me, Inception is my favorite Christopher Nolan movie. I like it better than The Dark Knight. But like since then, I don't think he's quite gotten there. I felt like Interstellar was good. I think Dunkirk was good, but like he hasn't reached that level yet. So I'm really curious to see what he does with Oppenheimer.
So the thing I will say, also just to continue to be the like one person who's like a little tiny bit critical of the movie.
Fair.
Like I do think that this is a movie that has been it suffers because its style has been imitated a lot.
Sure.
It is a relatively basic premise. Even though it's complicated, it's still basic, and it does
It's a heist
heavily
movie.
on the visual effects.
It's a simple plot that grows from itself into a full idea.
It kind of reminds me. It really does remind me a lot of Ocean's 11.
Yeah,
where,
I agree.
Like I enjoyed it, but and I may revisit it 10 years from now, but I probably will not revisit it unless I have a reason to.
I have seen it too many times now, so maybe wait a decade before I see it again.
This is not a
right.
watch every other weekend kind of a movie.
There is a heaviness to it for sure.
Not even that it's a heaviness, just that I don't think that there's not like the character backstories are interesting. I think it's good that it hasn't had a sequel because it could have the problem of The Matrix where it's like
right.
there is this world building. I feel like if you had a sequel, you'd start to see more of the cracks in the world building.
Sure.
I think they had just the right amount of story for the world that they had created, and anything beyond that will not really hold up.
Kind of like the totem at the end of the movie. It's spinning on a precarious point, and you don't want to...
And it's starting to wobble, but you're just going to cut it and move on.
But I think, and I mean, has he made another movie since then that's as good as this? The more I think about like what is as okay, well, it stopped recording in the middle of my rant, so I'll make a shorter version of it. But like the more I think about like what is, what's the best, or like, ranking, the top 5 of whatever, is this number 3 or is this number 1 or whatever. Like Christopher Nolan is one of the only people out there who is like his name on a movie will make me want to see it.
Yep.
Okay, and then I went into a big rant about how I don't like Avatar, but and I'm actively hoping that Avatar 2 doesn't get nominated for Best Picture so that I can avoid watching it. But I do, and then I realized we have spent a lot of time saying Inception is good, this other movie is bad. I do think that Inception is, at the end of the day, yeah, it's an 8 out of 10. It's a 3.5 out of 5. Like,
Wait, an 8 out of 10 is a 4 out of 5?
No, it is not. That's what I've been trying to tell you for 5 years. because an 8 out of 10 is a B. But a 6 out of 10 is a D. A 5 out of 10 is an F. But you use the whole. But 1 through 5, you use the whole scale.
Right. Because like in a 10 scale, 2 through 4 feels pretty much the same.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You almost never. You almost 2 through 4 like in my opinion.
I agree.
So
I'm with you.
Like a 3 because I would say a 7 out of 10 is an average movie.
Right.
A 3 out of 5 is an average movie.
It's fair.
So this is above average. This is above average. It's an 8 out of 10 or a 3.5 out of 5.
What he means to say, this is a 10 out of 10. It's a masterpiece. One of the best movies ever made.
And so I think that it is a good. It's a good, and also I think all of us liked it.
Yeah.
Whether we think it's like Jeff thinks it's a 10 out of 10. I'm judging it a little more harshly. I think one could say that it was a 10 out of 10 in that it is the best one of these. Like it's if you non-franchise sci-fi, it's probably one of the modern non-franchise sci-fi. Like of the last 20 years, it's probably the best.
Modern non-franchise sci-fi movies that start with the letter I.
Yeah, I would say.
That have to do with dreams.
Right. It is iconic. Anything that
definitely in the top
has
3
to do with
of those.
dreams again, we'll be referencing this movie.
Like if you compare it to like Mad Max Fury Road, although Mad Max is technically a franchise, but like everybody loves Mad Max Fury Road. I would say this is heads and tails better than Mad Max Fury Road.
Agreed.
No comparison. So like if you're comparing apples, compare it to Dune. You compare it to Dune. Like I like this way better than Dune.
Yeah, agreed.
I'm not going to specify the year so that you guys don't argue.
He knows.
But,
he's learned.
But I do think it's like a good. Yeah, it's like a really solid movie. So if you say like, oh, this movie that I saw is better than Inception, like
it means something.
Then it means something. Or comparable or like significantly worse. Or this is or if you're saying this fails, and in Inception they did it this way. I think that's actually kind of an interesting discussion, and hopefully that means that this was a good episode, and not just Nick hating on Tenet for 45 minutes.
I will happily hate on Tenet for 45 minutes.
It's a very small fraction of the episode, I think.
No, I'm willing to make that the whole episode. If you just want to leave me here in the room, I will.
You can pick Tenet for the next movie, Nick. Make us all watch it.
Absolutely not.
We will join you.
So speaking of non-franchise sci-fi movies, Jeff, is this movie better than Arrival?
Yeah. I mean, I love Arrival. Like, I not like by a large margin, but I think Inception is better.
Interesting.
Oh man. So what about? So this is interesting. Let's just play this game for a minute. Okay.
I haven't seen Arrival.
Minority Report. Is this movie better than Minority Report?
Yes, because I think Arrival's better than Minority Report.
I mean, I like Minority Report,
better,
but I think this movie's better.
I think so too. Maybe this is more than an 8 out of 10.
I think it's going to say 9 out of 10 because the only thing that's better than Inception is a near or perfect movie.
Okay, what about The Martian? Is it better than The Martian? I really like The Martian.
I also really like The Martian too.
I can't.
I'm gonna go with yes.
Yeah.
You're talking about that was the
It's
best.
a different kind of movie.
That movie won the Golden Globe for best musical or comedy. So
The Martian is fantastic, right? But I think this movie is.
The Martian is good, but like that's just more of like a straight story. It's less of a thinking thing and more of like watching a train.
The Martian also
there's less. It demands less of the viewer for sure.
Also, The Martian is one of the movies that I was talking about at the beginning that I saw it when it came out in theaters and I have not revisited it.
Yeah, I've only seen it once.
And I did like it. But let's see other non-franchise.
I think
sci-fi.
we all think it's better than Interstellar.
Yeah.
It's definitely better than Gravity. Not even close. What about Her? Have you seen Her?
I like Her, but
Her is really good, but I think Inception is better.
I need to revisit Her.
It's a good movie.
I really liked it.
Her is a really good movie.
It is a really good movie.
I think it would be even better like a few years later because that was a movie I feel like the sci-fi they actually kind of predicted.
Yeah.
A lot of artificial intelligence stuff.
Her is a good movie.
What about let's go deeper then. Let's go deeper then. All right.
Another
Close
layer.
Encounters.
Oh yeah, no contest.
Is Inception better than Close Encounters?
I don't love Close Encounters.
I like Close Encounters better than I like Inception.
Okay.
Close Encounters is a good movie, but it has deep flaws, and Inception doesn't.
Yeah, agreed.
What about 2001?
Well,
yes,
2001's
the
definitely
beeping,
better.
the unholy beeping.
You know my answer. I don't know that 2001 that much.
So 2001, it's interesting because I think I told you that I thought that the best way to watch 2001 was like a more passive way of just like kind of having it on and like I've seen the movie enough that I know where we're at and I can just kind of step in and out because the pacing isn't perfect. And Inception is the opposite of that. You have to be paying attention all the time.
2001 also has a pretentious ending that's trying to say something meaningful but doesn't. And Inception actually does say something meaningful.
Yeah, okay.
Interesting.
I forgot about that.
Let's see. It's a franchise, but it doesn't count. Jurassic Park.
Ooh. Oh, I love Jurassic Park.
Because it has become a franchise.
Tough one.
But it wasn't the one you're talking about
At the time.
Yeah, and it's kind of like Jurassic Park's kind of like Jaws, where like the sequels don't count.
Yeah, and like I said, Jurassic Park is such a different movie.
Those are just such a different kind of movie.
Yeah.
It's hard to compare.
See, I think Jurassic Park is better.
Jurassic Park's more fun.
Yeah.
I would happily watch Jurassic Park more often.
Right. I think I still like Inception better, but I get why you would
They're
watch
close. I don't know.
Yeah.
Let's see. What other non-franchise sci-fi movies exist?
I mean, this might be my favorite one. I don't
Think
know.
of like one or two more, and then we can end.
I mean, there's the first Matrix. If you pretend the sequels don't.
Yeah.
exist,
Okay. This is
right?
definitely. I think it. So, I think maybe the Matrix. No.
I think I like The Matrix better than this.
Okay.
movie. I don't know if it's better. I don't know. It's hard to say which one's
The Matrix
better, but I
came
think I
20
like
years
The Matrix.
No,
more.
10 years before.
10 years.
10 years,
Yeah,
yeah.
like 10 years before.
10
It's
years
not
before.
actually that far
Yeah.
before.
Right.
But I mean, technologically, a lot has changed.
But I think that 10 years after The Matrix came out, not only was its visual style like very outdated, it was and crazy imitated like Inception was.
Yeah.
But it also like I think more, and I mean maybe it was cultural stuff, and maybe this is me looking back 20 years and not 10 years, but like I think I don't think The Matrix holds up as well. Like it's kind of I don't want to say I don't know what the way they handle the violence in The Matrix just it kind of takes away from it a little bit. I think The Matrix, even just The Matrix being an R rating is anyway. But Inception is better than The Matrix. Man, maybe Inception is the best.
That's super good, man.
Maybe Inception is a 9 out of 10.
That's what I was saying.
It's not better than Empire.
What is that out of 5?
What is that out of 5? 4.5 out of 5.
Okay.
Could
See,
be
that makes sense. 4.5 out of 5.
There is
9
no
out of 10.
4 here.
It's not. It's apples and oranges. It's apples and oranges. No, there's a 4. No, I think. Yeah, no, there's a 4.
No, you said an 8 out of 10 is a 3.5, but a 9 out of 10 is a 4.
The problem is when you use a 5-point scale, if you use decimals, then it's
4.5.
basically the same thing as a 10-point scale. But if you keep it at 5, I think it works better.
I know,
'Cause for me,
personally, I rate everything out of 5 with no halves.
right, because I think if you give something a 5 out of 5, it doesn't mean it's perfect or flawless. It just means it's like the S tier of movies, right? It's about as good
Does that
as
mean
a
you
good
need a
movie can be.
5+ for the perfect movie?
I mean, once you show me one, I'll agree with you. I'm not sure if we have one of those yet, but
Did we just? I don't know.
maybe.
I'm trying to think.
I think there is some flaws in Inception. They're just
E.T.'s
minor.
better.
But it's
E.T.'s better.
so minor.
E.T.
No.
E.T.'s better.
E.T.'s
I haven't seen E.T. in
Yes.
forever, so I don't know.
Yes, I relatively recently saw E.T.
E.T. is good.
Like in the last 5 years, and
But is it better?
E.T.'s better.
Is it
He
better?
finally found one, guys. Crisis averted.
And actually, another similar thing where like E.T. could have had 700 sequels and been terrible, but it's better. All right, that's enough of that. If you guys have ideas for non-franchise sci-fi movies and how they compare to Inception, that is an interesting game. We'll have to play that more with other movies. Next time on the KendallCast movie.
Whoa, wait.
Roundtable-
First,
wait.
We got to pick our next movie, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to
okay.
say that.
I thought you were
Next
signing
time
off.
on the KendallCast movie.
We're done.
It's Nick's pick.
All right, yeah. So we're going to go into a. Usually I play a little game. I'm not doing that this time. I just have one movie
No
I want us
games.
to watch. We're going into something a little more modern, something just a little more fun. Came out this year, Bullet Train.
Bullet Train. Okay.
Oh, cool! I just saw that. I
you.
don't
I've
have
not
to watch
seen
it.
it yet.
Cool. Less homework.
Nice.
All right. Well, we'll see what we think of Bullet Train next time on the KendallCast Movie Roundtable.
Everyone on Reddit is talking about Bullet Train. I haven't seen it yet. So
seen it
It's
either.
good.
This podcast is a production of the KendallCast Podcast Network. If you'd like to support the show, you can go to patreon.com/KendallCast or make a direct donation through the PayPal link at kendallcast.ninja. Thanks for listening.